Pop quiz. How many decisions did you make this morning before you left the house? 10, 20? Try closer to 70. What to wear, whether to hit snooze, coffee, or tea, which route to work, whether to check your email now or later, whether to respond to that text, whether your hair looks okay, whether you need a jacket. And here's the wild part. You don't remember making most of them. That's because you didn't. Not consciously, anyway. Your brain made them for you, automatically, while you were scrolling Instagram and trying to remember where you put your keys. And the same system that decided whether you needed an umbrella today, that's the same system that's going to decide whether you speak up in that meeting, whether you negotiate your salary, whether you trust that new colleague, whether you stay in a job that's slowly crushing your soul. And it's going to get most of those wrong. Welcome to Book Takeaways for Professional Growth, where we turn the books you wish you had time to read into insights you can actually use. I am your host, Sophia. Today, we're starting with one question. What if everything you think you know about how you make decisions is wrong? Segment 1. Welcome and the promise. Let's be honest for a second. You're busy. You're juggling meetings, deadlines, emails that should have been Slack messages that should have been nothing at all. Everyone keeps telling you to read more. Read this business book. Read that psychology book. You have to read Thinking Fast and Slow. And you want to. You know you should. But when? When are you supposed to read a 500-page book on behavioral economics when you can barely finish your lunch without someone scheduling over it? That's why this podcast exists. Here's the deal. We read the books, the dense ones, the important ones, the ones that actually change how you think, not just give you feel-good quotes to screenshot for LinkedIn. Then we break them down, not in some academic, jargon-filled way, but in a way that makes you think, oh, that's why I keep doing that. That's why this keeps happening. That's what I need to change. This is Book Takeaways for Professional Growth. Real concepts from real books, applied to the real challenges you're facing right now. And here's our promise. If you make it a habit to tune in every day while on commute, exercising, taking a breather, or whenever you find time to click play and listen, you will eventually feel confident to tell it like you've read the books you must read to grow professionally. Truly. And today, we're starting with arguably the most important book on decision-making ever written, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Here's why this book matters. Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in economics, not for economics, but for figuring out how humans actually make decisions, which, it turns out, is completely different from how we think we make decisions. This book is the result of 50 years of research, thousands of experiments, decades of data, and it's going to destroy every comfortable assumption you have about your own rationality. Over this series, we're going to unpack the biggest insights from this book. But today, we're starting with the foundation, the one insight that explains everything else, the insight that reveals why smart people make catastrophically dumb decisions, why you keep repeating the same mistakes, and why your gut instinct is probably your worst enemy. Stick with me. By the end of this episode, you'll never trust your own brain the same way again. And that's a good thing. Segment 2. The big idea. 2 systems. Here's the core concept, and I'm going to keep this simple because Kahneman spends 500 pages unpacking it. But you don't need all that to understand what's happening in your head right now. Your brain operates using 2 systems, not metaphorically, not kind of, literally 2 distinct systems. Kahneman calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, effortless. It's the part of your brain that runs in the background, handling the 70 micro decisions you made this morning without breaking a sweat. System 1 recognizes your coworker's face instantly. It knows someone's angry just from their tone. It makes you flinch when something flies at your head. It operates at lightning speed. No conscious effort required. System 2 is the opposite. It's slow, deliberate, effortful. It's the part that kicks in when you're solving a complex problem, reading a legal contract, or trying to parallel park in a space that's just barely big enough. System 2 requires focus. It drains energy. And because of that, it's lazy. It only works when absolutely forced to. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of the time, you think you're operating in System 2. You think you're being thoughtful, analytical, rational, but the reality? You're running on System 1 about 95% of the time. System 1 is making snap judgments, forming opinions, drawing conclusions, and System 2? System 2 is just sitting back, nodding along, going, yeah, that sounds about right. Unless System 1 gets stuck, then, and only then, does System 2 reluctantly drag itself out of bed to help. The example. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to give you a simple problem. Don't overthink it. Just answer with your first instinct. Ready? A bat and a ball cost $1.10 in total. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Pause for 2 seconds. What did you say? 10 cents? Yeah, that's System 1. It heard $1.10 and $1 more and instantly served up 10 cents because it felt right. Fast, confident, done. But if you actually do the math, if you force System 2 to wake up and check the work, you'll realize that can't be right. If the ball costs 10 cents and the bat costs $1 more, the bat costs $1.10. That's a total of $1.20, not $1.10. The correct answer, the ball costs 5 cents and the bat costs $1.05. Now, if you got that wrong, don't feel bad. Most people do, even people who should know better. That's the entire point. System 1 gave you a fast, confident, wrong answer, and System 2 didn't bother to check it. That's how your brain works all the time. Not just on trick questions, on everything. On whether to hire someone, on whether to trust a pitch, on whether a project is worth pursuing, on whether you should negotiate or accept the first offer. Your brain is taking shortcuts constantly, and most of the time you have no idea it's happening. Segment 3. Why this matters. Real consequences. All right, so why does this matter? Why should you care that your brain has 2 systems? Because every major mistake you've made in your career and every costly mistake your company has made probably came from trusting System 1 when you should have engaged System 2. Let me show you where this shows up. Hiring decisions. You meet a candidate. They're polished, confident, they went to a good school, they laugh at your jokes. System 1 says, I like this person. They're great. Hire them. But did you actually assess whether they can do the job? Did you check their skills against the role requirements? Did you ask behavioral questions to see how they handle conflict? Or did you just vibe with them? That's System 1. And research shows it's wrong about 50% of the time on hiring decisions. You might as well flip a coin. Project planning. You're excited about a new initiative. System 1 says this'll be amazing. 3 months, $50,000, huge impact. But have you looked at similar projects? What did those actually take? Did you account for dependencies, unexpected delays, scope creep? Probably not, because System 1 doesn't like messy reality. It likes clean, optimistic stories. Kahneman calls this the planning fallacy. It's why literally every project you've ever worked on has gone over time and over budget. Salary negotiations. Your potential employer offers you $70,000. System 1 hears that number and immediately anchors to it. Now, every number you think of is in relation to $70,000. Should you ask for $75,000? $80,000? But here's the problem. The person who should be making $95,000 just negotiated themselves down to $78,000 because System 1 got hijacked by the first number it heard. Now, I'm not saying System 1 is the enemy. It's not. System 1 is why you can walk and talk simultaneously. It's why you can drive home on autopilot while thinking about what you need to do tomorrow. System 1 is a superpower, but here's the issue. System 1 was designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. It evolved to help you recognize threats in the savannah, find food, navigate social hierarchies in small tribes. It wasn't designed to evaluate job offers, assess financial risk, or decide whether to invest in a tech startup. And because System 2 is lazy, because it only shows up when absolutely necessary, you're letting a system designed for survival make decisions about your career. That's the problem. That's why smart people stay in terrible jobs, why talented teams make predictable mistakes, why you keep doing the thing you know doesn't work. Not because you're broken, because your brain is operating exactly as designed, just in the wrong environment. Segment 4, What's Coming in this series. Over the next several episodes, we're going to unpack the biggest, most actionable insights from Thinking Fast and Slow. We're going to cover loss aversion, why you're more afraid of losing $100 than excited about gaining $100, and why that fear keeps you trapped in situations you know are wrong. Anchoring, why the first number you hear in a negotiation controls everything that comes after and how to break free from it. Overconfidence, why experts are often more wrong than beginners, and why confidence has almost nothing to do with accuracy. The planning fallacy, why every timeline you create is wildly optimistic and how to actually plan realistically. Availability bias, why you think plane crashes are common and car accidents are rare, even though the data says the opposite. Heuristics, the mental shortcuts that save you time but cost you accuracy. And we're not just going to explain these concepts. We're going to show you exactly where they show up in your actual life, in your meetings, in your emails, in the decisions you're making this week. Because here's the thing, knowing about these biases doesn't automatically fix them. System 1 is still going to operate the same way. But awareness is the first step. When you can recognize that System 1 is running the show, you can choose to engage System 2. You can slow down, you can check your assumptions, and that's where actual growth happens. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, but I don't have time to stop and analyze every decision. I'd never get anything done. You're absolutely right. You can't engage System 2 for everything. You'd be mentally exhausted by 10 a.m., but you can engage it for the decisions that matter, the high-stakes ones, the ones with long-term consequences. And the more you practice recognizing when System 1 is steering you wrong, the better you get at knowing when to pump the brakes. That's the skill we're building here. Segment 5. One thing you can use today. All right, before we wrap this first episode, I want to give you something you can use immediately. Here's your takeaway. The next time you're about to make an important decision, hiring someone, committing to a deadline, negotiating an offer, choosing between two opportunities, pause and ask yourself one question. Am I thinking or am I just feeling certain? Because System 1 always feels certain. It doesn't do doubt. It doesn't do nuance. It gives you an answer instantly, and it gives it to you with confidence. But confidence is not the same as correctness. So when you feel that surge of certainty, that gut feeling that says, I just know this is right, that's your cue to slow down. Ask yourself, what information am I actually basing this on? What am I not considering? If I were advising a friend in this situation, what would I tell them to check? What evidence would change my mind? Those questions activate System 2. They force you to step outside the automatic response and actually think. And here's what's fascinating. Most of the time when you do this, you realize your initial instinct was missing something critical. Not always. Sometimes your gut is right, but often enough that it's worth checking. That's the practice. Notice when System 1 is running the show and choose deliberately to engage System 2 for the decisions that matter. It's not about becoming paranoid or second-guessing everything. It's about being intentional. And that's what separates people who keep making the same mistakes from people who actually grow. Segment 6. Preview and call to action. So that's the foundation. That's the lens we'll use for everything that comes next. Next episode, we're diving into one of the most powerful and most destructive cognitive biases in professional life, loss aversion. We're going to talk about why you're staying in a job you hate, why you're not taking the risks you know you should take, and why your brain is convincing you that playing it safe is actually the riskiest move you can make. If you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever known you should leave or pivot or take a chance, but somehow you just couldn't, that episode will hit hard. These episodes build on each other. Each one gives you a new tool, a new lens, a new way to see the decisions you're making. So if this was valuable, subscribe, because over the next few weeks, we're going to completely rewire how you think about thinking. And one more thing, this show works best as a conversation. So if something I said landed for you, or if you have a question or a specific situation you're trying to work through, reach out. You can comment below or find us on Instagram. We read everything. Because here's the truth. We're making this show for you. For the professional who wants to grow but doesn't have 6 hours to read dense psychology books. For the person who's tired of making the same mistakes and wants to understand why they keep happening. If that's you, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Recap and close. All right, let's bring it home. Your brain has 2 systems. System 1 is fast, automatic, and running most of your life. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and only shows up when forced. The problem? Most of your important career decisions are being made by System 1, and System 1 wasn't built for the modern world. The solution? Learn to recognize when System 1 is talking, and engage System 2 for the high-stakes calls. The practice? Next time you feel certain about something important, pause. Ask yourself, am I thinking or am I just feeling certain? That's how you start taking control of your decisions instead of letting your biases make them for you. This is book Takeaways for Professional Growth, where we break down the books that matter so you can apply what actually works. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one. Let us know in the comment if we delivered on our promise to tell it like you've read it. If you found value in this episode, please share it to friends who might also benefit from this book takeaway. Subscribe and follow so you wouldn't miss the next one. Keep growing.